Hey guys, so in this video I wanted to do a little bit of a Q&A that I got from some of my clients, asked some of them for some questions they wanted me to sort of go over in a longer format in a video. So I wanted to go through them in this little Q&A for this week's video. So the first question is, does intensity or volume matter more for strength? So what the most recent literature is telling us is that peak intensity is what matters the most for strength levels. So for example, you mostly want to be focused on like your peak exposure to intensity if you want to get stronger. However, there's a range of intensities that you should probably focus on for that to happen. So for example, usually I recommend for most people on squat and deadlift to have more of a 6 to 8 RPE average on their intensity, just because that tends to be the most maximally stimulating relative to the fatigue, because you can do a max out, and that's going to be the most #1 thing in terms of getting strongest in the short term. But we have to remember that getting stronger, getting more jacked, getting more lean, etc., it's about action over time and consistency. You don't get really strong from one workout, you don't get really lean from one workout, you don't get really jacked from one day of eating and really fat from one day of eating. It's about what you will do most of the time, and that's going to determine your end goals. So then volume matters a lot more for actual hypertrophy, which is that's a really important part of strength. So you need both of them, but they did I'll link this study down below, but I know that they had one study that was more recently done I think it was, I forget where the lab was, but they did a minimum effective dose for strength, and they basically did this with top lifters like the IPF, and asked them what's a minimally acceptable rate of progress, and they asked them, okay, well, let's see if the minimal dose of the program would basically do this. And so I believe they would work out to basically around a max, like a 999.5 single, and do some lighter back down work. That was pretty easy. And the total volume in terms of reps, I believe was 7 reps on deadlift, 11 reps on squat, and 14 reps on bench press. And these elite powerlifters still got stronger, but they were prioritizing that peak intensity. So if you want to get strong, what I recommend doing, this is sort of what DUP is having one day, which is your primary day, prioritizing that peak intensity, and then if you got a hypertrophy day or more of a volume day, that still matters, but you want to basically set up your program for powerlifting to be maximally strong on that day. So placing that hypertrophy workout 48 hours after your heavy day, then having ideally 3 days of rest, or if you're going to be training before that, the workout would be your last bench workout before, or your last workout before you do that heavy workout should be more of a technique, not super hard, no slowdown, something like that. That's what you kind of want to do. So hopefully that answers that question. So the second question is, what do you do the next week if you overshoot when you're training? So first off, I think that we should examine the reason why you're overshooting. So if you're overshooting because you're trying to force weight on the body, you had a little bit of an ego, you kind of just knew oh, this is gonna be heavy, but I still load the weight up. I would get back in the pocket in terms of say, okay, that was whatever, I wasn't a very smart choice. I'm going to increase decrease weight, get back into that pocket in terms of being in a good spot for RPE. If you're pretty close, maybe half RPE or full RPE above, you have 1 or 2 options that I like to do. Typically either maintain the weight next week or add 5 pounds. That's what I would probably do, but learning the skill to auto-regulate is really important, going off your fatigue levels on that day. And what I like to do is use sort of a indicator set. So there's a certain weight that that you can kind of take to gauge your strength. Usually for me on deadlift, that's around 600 pounds. On squat, it's around 450, and then on bench press it's around 342. I know about from that point how strong I am on that day. So go off of that, rate your RPE on that on an indicator set, and based off what your training max is, and then you can basically make a much smarter weight selection what you're going to do on that day. That's what I do to prevent overshooting. So yeah, try not to do it, but if you do it, it's not the end of the world. Just get back on track. Minimum calorie surplus for a bulk. So this is a really good question, because I think it's something that a lot of us wonder. because like, you know, in theory, like the maximum amount of muscle that you can gain in most cases is around 1 pound a month. However, that's not taking into account there are other things that go along with the weight gain, you know, more glycogen, more water retention. Like it's not just pure 1 pound of like contractile tissue. And second off, when you do increase calories, you know, some people have a very adaptive energy expenditure upwards, which is why some people like might have a fast metabolism or they're very resistant to weight gain, is that they have a very high NEAT where they compensate pretty highly for increases in calories. So I've really tried this, you know, some people are like, oh, you only like 100 calorie surplus, and in theory, like, while that might be good, or like, you know, actually be proper on paper, the reality is that like, when you overfeed, you're going to have increased like energy, metabolism from just digesting more food. Mostly people are going to, you know, have higher core body temperature too, and then people tend to fidget more, they tend to move more. So maybe the 100 calorie surplus is just, you have like a 20 calorie surplus, which is just not trackable, and that's really just basically maintenance anyway. So I have found that in basically every single case, if you want to get more muscular, if you want to bulk, get more muscular, like a bare minimum 200 calorie surplus is what you should shoot for, and then measure weight on a monthly basis, and you should begin getting on average a 1% increase on body weight. So like, and that's after like the first week or two, or like there's going to be probably a bigger like, you know, jump in body weight from more food volume, more water, you know, being stored in the muscle, more glycogen, etc. Like after that, on average, about 1%. I have found that anything less than that in practice tends to be untrackable. So that's what I would recommend doing. Another question is going to be, why does my close grip bench feel stronger than my comp bench some days? So this is mainly going to be due to fatigue patterns and having different motor neurons being like more taxed or whatnot. So like, for example, like that's one of the, you know, that's like, I would call it the principle of directed variation. You know, having variation for a purpose. You know, if you're constantly doing the same movement patterns over and over again, you're going to be fatiguing the same structures, the same motor neurons. While that's good for practicing, you know, the skill of strength and whatnot, we have some good research that shows like, you know, some kind of contrast in exercise choices, loading, etc., can really help out with being able to, number one, have better technique, because you need more strategies in regards to how to, you know, how to lift the weight, and then also it just gives your body just more opportunity to like overload different motor patterns. So it tends to just be because like more unit fatigue, you might be a little bit sore in that target muscle, there might be some more muscle damage in that, you know, whatever grip you're using. But this is like one of the biggest reasons why I do like variation. A lot of times with my programs, I do incorporate quite a bit of variation, because I do find that people tend to stay a little bit healthier. It's a little more fun to like, you know, try different things. And yeah, so like, yeah, it's normal to have some days feel stronger with different variations than your comp bench or whatever you're doing. So pay attention to your training response and just like be willing to like auto-regulate. It doesn't mean like your comp bench is like weak, just as like, in terms of like overall training week, like I tell my athletes, like I really only care about your primary and how strong that is. The other day it's just like auto-regulate, however fatigued that you are, hit the RPE, and you know, over time you're going to get stronger. What causes somebody to have a fast metabolism? So this is basically going to be genetic, to be completely honest. You got people with this exact same stats on paper, that they could be like a 2,000 plus calorie difference in energy expenditure between them. Typically these people tend to, you know, have a higher NEAT, so they tend to fidget more. They tend to just be very spendthrift with their metabolism. It's just something that you have genetically mostly predetermined, because the bulk of your energy expenditure is going to be via your basal metabolic rate. You know, so things that you can do to increase your metabolism: number one, strength training builds some muscle. You know, more muscle is going to burn more calories at rest and exponentially more calories when you're moving. Increase your step count. So for every 2,500 steps for every mile, you're going to be getting about 100 calories burned. If you weigh 200 pounds, if you're a little bit less than that, some, you know, fraction of that. But for the sake of simplicity, 100 calories burned. Make sure that you're sleeping enough. That's going to really impact your metabolic rate too. Make sure that you are having a high protein in your diet. It's going to also increase, you know, energy expenditure through like higher thermic effect of food. But yeah, besides that, like that's really about it. One fun fact is like weight training, like because it's a high intensity activity, there's like no energy compensation for it. So for example, if you're burning 600, if you're doing like 600 for 10, that burns like exponentially more calories than 300. So like getting strong can also help you out with having a faster metabolism. couple more questions. Does height impact your metabolic rate? The answer to that is going to be no. It's just going to be based off like body weight. Like that's one like generally for like you know, every inch that you have, you know, you're gonna weigh more. That's going to be what's going to impact your metabolism the most. So it's not height really. It's just going to be total body mass that has more bigger impact on your metabolic rate than your height does. I think like every inch is like 5 to 7 pounds. I think that's what it is. I think you can look up like, anyways, it's mostly body weight related. Last question is going to be, what is your favorite protein bar? So those are going to be Built bars. I actually have a code with them. You guys go on to built.com. They will link down like in the description below. Use Peeler10, but like these have like the best macros. They taste really good. I personally really like the coconut marshmallow puff a lot, and then I also I'm a really big fan of their shoot, what is it? Like I like their salted caramel one a lot too. Yeah, you can't really go wrong with them. So, and I do have like protein bars. I think they're a good source of like, most protein bars suck because they have like really high. They're basically a candy bar with, you know, some protein added in terms of the macros, but these actually have like pretty damn good macros. Like for most Built bars, it's going to be like 17 grams of protein, 18 grams of carbs, and 2.5 fat. That's really good. So yeah, use code Peeler10 for Built bar down below. But besides that, that's really all the questions I wanted to go through. Thank you guys for watching. You guys have any questions, ask them down below. If you guys are interested in coaching, go in the link down below, apply for coaching. Follow me on Instagram, AdamDPeeler. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.